It's time for The Drive with Q on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Now, here's Q.
Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. It is indeed a Thursday edition of The Drive with Q, coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game studio, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, part of the Coastal Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. 2 hours to play with. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Mi hermano Angel Martinez, who's always behind the glass, is taking care of some business today. He will be back in the saddle tomorrow, 10 to 12, and then he'll be joining me on a What the Freak Football Friday edition of The Drive with Q from 4 to 6. Busy shows over the next several days. We're going to try to squeeze in a conference final championship preview either Saturday or Sunday. Yeah, why not? We'll just throw it out there. He's probably driving around, probably thinking to himself, what the hell? Q's making executive decisions right now. Yes, I am. 727-858-6650. Get involved. That'll get you involved in two-way sports talk. Bring something to the table. We are powered by our good friends over at Zen Auto Concepts and, of course, our wonderful friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase. Use the promo code BYP20. We'll have a new Back Your Play tonight and tomorrow to preview the games. Hoping to hear from Lloyd Vance either today and or tomorrow. But as I mentioned, very, very busy day. NFL heavy. And why not? Why not? There are going to be just ridiculous storylines coming out of these conference championships. You know it, and I know it. And today, maybe the first proverbial shot was fired across the bow. And that comes courtesy of the Washington Commanders. And is it possible now that there has been a bounty on Jalen Hurts? Is there a bounty by the Commanders? Well, according to the Washington Commanders and their defensive coordinator, yeah, why not? We're going to hit him. And rightfully so. Now, before everyone gets up in arms about this, and remember a while back, Jalen Hurts basically said, hey, there's always a bounty on me every single solitary week. Listen, this is where we're at. This is where we're at right now. This game is, I have a feeling this game's going to be a classic. I really do. I feel this game has the makings of being an instant classic. And hell, we haven't even played it yet. You get this feeling that Washington will not be bullied. Washington is not going to be intimidated going into Philadelphia in the big bad link in the hostile environment. South Philly Eagles fans, here we go. We're going to get the cheer going for some that know how to spell Eagles, but I digress. So it's going to be one of those games where it might come down to special teams. It might come down to who has possession last. And I think this has the makeup of being an absolute barn burner and a classic. And I have absolutely no problem. No problem with Washington coming out saying, yeah, we're going to hit them. You should. You should. You're always trying to hit the quarterback and knock the quarterback out, but doing it in a way where it's not dirty. I mean, listen, this is not for the faint of heart. So Joe Witt Jr. basically came out and said, yeah, if he runs like a running back, we're going to hit him. We're going to hit him that way. That's the decision if they want to get him hit the way he gets hit. Game on. Game on. You want to talk about the high drama? You got it. That's exactly what you want. You wanted something, buzz. You wanted something to light the fuse, a little juice, because the Washington Commanders are telling you absolutely in no way, shape, or form are we the command skins, are we the old Redskins, are we the pushovers, we're the slouches. We're going to come in here and we're going to bang bodies. We're going to mano a mano. We're going to man you up. We're going to take your best shot. We're going to deliver the first blow. Good. If you're a Commanders fan, if you're a Washington fan, you've been waiting to hear that for 20 friggin' years, to have a little balls, have some juice. Get in there and sell out. This is the NFL, man. This is the NFL. And this is not poking the bear. This is not, if you cannot get up for this game, if the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders cannot get up for this game, then go figure out something to do with your life. You're talking the NFC Championship, man, 60 minutes away from having a little waltz down on Bourbon Street, New Orleans for the Super Bowl, where two quarterbacks can easily cement their legacies. And we already know, ultimately, it's for Josh Allen and Mahomes. Mahomes' legacy is cemented, but now he wants to take it to this other, past the moon and the stars stratosphere. Josh Allen can do what Nick Foles did for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that was help them claim their first Lombardi trophy, the first ever for the franchise. That's what Buffalo's starving, dying, in desperate need of a championship. Josh Allen can sit there and do that. Got to get past Kansas City first and then win the Super Bowl. But you got Daniels and you got Hurts. And I still believe this. As much as this is probably going to rub the Eagles fan the wrong way, there is a sentiment, there is a part of the fan base that still does not believe in Jalen Hurts. There is a part out there that still believes that Jalen Hurts is mid. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. Listen, Jalen Hurts can silence a lot of critics. You win on Sunday and you win a Super Bowl, that shuts a lot of people up. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. I think we are, again, in store for what's going to be a classic championship Sunday. You got 4 very good teams and 4 very good quarterbacks. So we're going to dive into those games. We might hear from Lloyd Vance either today and or tomorrow, but we'll obviously connect with you guys, 727-858-6650. Raven Sean Andrews spoke. We'll dive into that a little bit. And how about this? We're always dissecting, breaking down, debating. Who's going to be the MVP? Who's your vote? Who's going to be the MVP? Well, we have the finalist right now for the MVP award, which I will give out to you momentarily. But I want to hear from you guys. This is what you want. You want that classic NFC East. I mean, look, there's familiarity. Anytime you have 2 teams in the same division vying for an NFC or AFC championship game, that's huge. The familiarity, right? There's not a ton of miles or distance, up and down 95, DC to Philly. There really isn't. Back in the day, Washington was owning, along with the Giants, the NFC. And then the Eagles started to come into play in the late 80s. The Giants were still winning championships. Dallas started their march. Washington had their run. And then those teams kind of came back down to earth. And then obviously Dallas came back down to earth. Eagles went up. Giants had a moment or two. And Washington's kind of been the little stepbrother of the NFC East. Aside from, having a really good run in the 80s and the early 90s. They really haven't been a team that we look at and say, yeah, you know what? The NFL is better when Washington is good. And now Washington is good. And it's not a fraud. It's not a fraud at all. They're legit. 727-858-6650. Joey B., good afternoon. Joey, how are you, my friend? Hope you guys are doing well. Always appreciate you guys connecting with us early and often, as we like to say. Trevor chimes in. How did it turn out for Verse talking that shit? Did they want to fire up the most physical, aggressive line in the NFL? Yeah, but that kid played well, man. That kid played really, really well. Listen, it doesn't matter. You're allowed to. Let me explain something to you. Like now I see these videos where Saquon's saying, watch this, and then he breaks one off. That's not what he's saying. You push your own narrative. Talking trash. Why? Because we take a segment, we take a soundbite. Hey, if it blows up in Witt's face, so be it. But Dan Quinn's basically came out and is using the FU, us against the world. That's what you want. That's what you want in your head coach. And what? Sirianni doesn't talk? Sirianni doesn't chirp? Come on, stop. Get out of here with that nonsense. Can you imagine Bourbon Street with Bills Mafia, Eagles fans bringing the military to control them, right? Hey, you got to get there first, right? You have to get there first. There's nothing wrong with a little trash talking, but at this point, come on, man. You don't need to get motivated. It's not really bulletin board material. All he's basically saying is, yeah, if he runs like a running back, we're going to hit him. What does he want you to say? We're going to touch him. We're going to tap him. We're going to blow on him. We're going to breathe on him. We're going to give him a friggin' kiss on the cheek. Come on, man. It's not a friggin' man up Monday, but man up, Trevor, will you? It's the NFL. It's playoff time. NFC, AFC championship. This is it. There's no tomorrow with these games. You got one run at it. And they already know Jalen Hurts is banged up. They already know Jalen Hurts is not far removed from being concussed. They also know that Jalen Hurts is laboring a little bit with that knee. So, yeah, you're going to hit him. You're going to hit him. Now, you don't want anything Bush League that's going to cost you 15 and keep a drive alive. No, of course not. Nobody wants that nonsense. You want a clean game. But if it gets physical, it gets physical, man. That's the NFL. That's the NFL. You guys know it, and I know it, right? I mean, come on. Vince chimes in. Anyone in Philly who doesn't think Hurts is that guy is crazy. As a Steelers fan, I'd give up half the offense for a quarterback like Jalen. How about they take Wilson and Fields and we take Hurts? There is a sentiment of the fan base that looks at Jalen Hurts and they don't believe that Jalen Hurts is the guy just yet. Listen, whether it was the radio podcasting or the show now, I've had fans comment, chime in, even some of my friends, there are people that are not, there's a space of the fan base that is not entirely sold on Jalen Hurts. They're almost waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't necessarily think it's fair. I don't necessarily look at Jalen Hurts and say Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback. I think Jalen Hurts is an efficient quarterback. I think Jalen Hurts has his moments, and I also think Jalen Hurts can frustrate the hell out of you. Jalen Hurts and McNabb, they put up some numbers, but they also had moments where you scratch your head. Josh Allen puts up mad numbers and moments where you scratch your head. Lamar Jackson, ridiculous numbers, and then a moment or two where you scratch your head. That's the nature of the position. That's the style. People are going to look at the other day, Jalen Hurts takes a safety. Why? Because he's not reading through the progressions. He doesn't see a wide receiver. I think the tight end kind of slant crossing route, and he takes an ill-advised safety, and quite frankly, it could have cost him the game. It could have cost him the game, right? But he also, I don't want to say we brush past it, but we also have to remember he had a 44-yard scamper for a touchdown. He's not going to put up the gaudy numbers. And you don't need him to do that. Not when you have the best running back in football with one of the best offensive lines. You don't need your quarterback to just go off all the time, unless you're a team that really has no weapons and the quarterback has to carry you. I mean, ultimately, if you guys had a game where Jalen Hurts threw for $186, ran for a touchdown, threw for a touchdown, and the Eagles won, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Now, listen, he was limited in today's walkthrough. He's going to play, but he's compromised. He's not 100%. He's not 100%. And as I alluded to, you look at some of these numbers. Look, last year, he did not play particularly well. And they had that big start, and then they dropped 6 or 7. He threw for 15 picks last year, and his decision-making was poor. This year, he hasn't thrown as many touchdown passes. Now it's 2 less games, but he's also cut down on his interceptions. He threw 15 last year. He's only thrown 5 this year. And he's taken the same amount of sacks. So if you want to sit there and say he's holding on to the ball too long, whatever. But he also rushed for 14 touchdowns. He also lost 4 fumbles. Like, you're always going to get the good and the bad with quarterbacks. Hell, Brady had an off day. Montana had an off day. Peyton Manning had an off day. Elway has had off days. You just don't want that off day to come on Sunday. You need a clean game from Jalen Hurts. You need that from all these quarterbacks. I mean, this is not reinventing the wheel. You need that from all these quarterbacks. Keep them upright, keep them clean in the pocket, let them do what they do best. But putting a bounty or coming out saying you're going to hit the guy, I have no problem with that. Go ahead. Go ahead. And if Jalen Hurts winds up killing you and running for 75 yards and a long touchdown, or, converting a 3rd and 13 when under 4 minutes to go to keep a drive alive and the Eagles ice it, then guess what? Jalen Hurts got the better of Washington on that day. It's going to be a really compelling game. The AFC game, I think the Bills have a legitimate shot, a puncher's chance. But these 4 games, you have 4 very uniquely skilled quarterbacks. They're pretty much, and bear with me when I say this, they all have similar attributes. They can scramble, they can improvise, they can run. They're a threat to break the pocket, to extend drives. Daniels can do it. Hurts can do it. Allen can do it. Mahomes can certainly do it. But they can also lead you from behind. And I think with the Eagles, some of the Eagles fans, maybe they just don't believe that Hurts is that guy. Maybe they believe Hurts can't go 75 yards with a $113 to go down 6 and 1 timeout. Maybe he gets that shot on Wednesday. We've seen him lead drives before. But you're not asking him to put up gaudy numbers. That's all I'm saying. You don't need big-time numbers. Not when you have maybe the NFL MVP in Saquon Barkley. Maybe the NFL MVP. I'll give you the list of the finalists on the other side as well. All right, 727-858-6650. Just crank it up. On a Thursday edition of The Drive, Rich Quinones is here. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Mi hermano Angel Martinez on the road today. Can't wait to have him back in the saddle tomorrow. Pete Shepard will start you off on a Friday. Pete Shepard Show 7 to 10. Martinez and company 10 to 12. And then, of course, The Drive with Q 4 to 6. We'll get to some Facebook message as well as your comments on X. I see a lot of Washington fans chiming in. I see some Eagles fans chiming in as well. I'll give you the updated odds, NFL MVP, where the money has been layered, as we like to say. And you might be surprised here, but I'll also give you the list of the finalists. Also, Mark Andrews spoke, might be a new head coach in Big D, and also some movement around the NFL, which we will sprinkle in before we get out of here at 6 o'clock. Keep it locked in as always. Want to hear from you guys. 727-858-6650. And it's interesting too. In the 5:15, 5:20, we'll get into my Thursday plays in the NBA. Reese Wood joins us yesterday, talks about how Miami handles the Jimmy Butler situation, and then they suspend him again. So we'll get to the NBA on the other side around 5-ish, but we go football heavy with you guys. Going to need a little help, need a little assistance. Always enjoy your comments, your texts, and your messages as well. 727-858-6650. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. 20 past the 4 o'clock hour on a Thursday edition of The Drive with Q. As always, do not forget to download the app, SR 1029 FM, the app, part of the Coastal Sports Network. Connect with us on social media, Facebook, IG, and also on X. Quick time out. We'll come back on the other side.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, "That's rad." It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, "Totally," just shorter. As in, "I totes love going to the mall with Becca." Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, "Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case."
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work. but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Call or text the show at 727-858-6650. Now, back to Q.
All right, you heard our guy, Bummer Guy, 727-858-6650. Are they selling snowballs for Sunday? Is that what we're doing now? Snowballs? I mean, that's... I guess everyone has their thing, right? Have to come out with those shirts. EIGGLES. Have, put those up as the merch store. Salim chimes in, hey, you know what, Q, finally good for Washington. I've been a Redskins / Commanders fan for 33 years. I'm sick and tired of the friggin' Eagles, sick and tired of the Giants, sick and tired of the Dallas Cowboys who haven't won dick. Oh my goodness. I am beyond fired up for this game come Sunday. And as you alluded to, I think Daniel's going to be the X factor. Let him go out and hurt Hurts. Well, hold on. I didn't say hurt Hurts. I said hit him. You have an opportunity to knock him out of the game. Knock him out of the game. And you're right. I can respect where Washington is coming from. Let Quinn and let them put it on themselves, right? Take the attention away from the players. Now, you get to this point, it's tough to do, but you got a special player in Jaden Daniels. You heard Lake Lewis last week basically say, hey, we knew it from the start. And now you have Dan Quinn that has just revitalized his franchise. They're allowed to have a little swag, a little bravado. They're allowed to have a little juice. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I don't think this is something where, because Joe Witt Jr. comes out and says, we're going to hit him, you guys are going to plaster that and put that bulletin board material, right? And the Eagles will have it pepper sprayed and put on the locker, paint sprayed, I should say, not pepper sprayed, paint sprayed on the locker and use it as fodder. You're at this point, whatever you need to get yourself over that hump, that's fine. That's fine. If that's what you really think. I feel some of you guys that are commenting in, right away, well, you shouldn't be saying something like that. And now all of a sudden the referees are going to, the Washington fans, don't panic. Stop. Because now you're coming off, you sound foolish. There's nothing to panic about. You're playing with house money. You've exceeded expectations. Not a lot of people, except this guy right here, said you were going to make the playoffs. Even some of the DC pundits thought they were going to be horrible this season. You lost 8 games in a row last year. You had Sam Howell quarterbacking. You got rid of Ron Rivera. You got rid of Eric Bieniemy. You brought in a new owner. You changed the culture in one friggin' season. Enjoy the ride. Like, puff your chest out. There's nothing wrong with being a little confident, a little cocky, a little arrogant. Because if you look across the sideline, what the hell do you think the Eagles are doing? You got a head coach that runs up and down like a clown half the time with his theatrics. When you win, you can get away with it. You can get away with it. Turn the ball over, posing for pictures. Here we go. When you win, you can get away with it. Listen, there's pressure. There's more pressure on Hurts and Sirianni on Sunday than Quinn and Jaden Daniels. You'd have to be absolutely crazy if you think there was more pressure on Washington to win this game than Philadelphia. Philadelphia is, you could have made the case. You have the MVP in Saquon Barkley. You could have made the case home field advantage. Well, guess what? Now they have home field for the NFC Championship. Hostile environment, best offensive line, top 5 defense, playmakers all over. Hurts, Goddard, Brown, Smith, an MVP in Saquon Barkley. There's pressure on Philly to deliver and win on Sunday. Washington is just kind of taking a little trek down 95, little drive with Q down 95, and they believe, hey, we're going to play. We got a shot. We're going to win this game. But the pressure, don't get it twisted. The pressure's on the Philadelphia Eagles, man, because everything opened up. You don't have to worry about Detroit. You don't have to worry about Minnesota. Those were really your threats, were they not? So you don't really have to worry about any other team. All you have to worry about is the team that's lining up on the other side of the ball, and that's Washington, a team you're very familiar with, a team where you know you got to put a bullseye on the quarterback's back because he's the caveat. He's the X factor. Jaden Daniels would be the X factor. Aside from Saquon, Jaden Daniels is the best player on the field on Sunday. Now, is Hurts going to be the best player? Is A.J. Brown, Smith, Goddard? Is McLaren? Is Robinson? Is it going to be Daniels? Is it going to be Saquon? We're going to find out. We're going to find out, but don't get it twisted. The pressure is on Philadelphia, not Washington. 727-858-6650. We'll get some comments on the other side. 426. I see you guys are coming in, and I always appreciate that. 727-858-6650. That'll get you involved in two-way sports talk. We will take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. By the way, I told you guys with the AP NFL MVP. So here you go. AP NFL MVP finalist. Josh Allen, not a surprise. Saquon Barkley, not a surprise. Lamar Jackson, not a surprise. Joe Burrow, not a surprise. Jared Goff. So Barkley, Burrow, and Jackson are all finalists for Offensive Player of the Year. And Burrow's in the running for comeback player. I mean, it's going to be either Sam Darnold or DeMar Hamlin. You guys know that. I mean, let's be honest. But I'll give you the updated odds on that. 727-858-6650. Jerry from Rhode Island texting Q. I don't hear Angel bragging about how warm it is in his part of the world. No, nor should he. It's cold, man. It is absolutely, it's not even, Jerry, it's not, I don't know what's going on in Rhode Island or, how you guys get hit with snow, this, that, the other thing. But I will say this, it's not even like cold. It's obnoxious. It's obnoxiously cold if that's even possible, where it feels like it's like 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees. And then you get the wind whipping down here off the water and it's unbearable. It is. It's not. Yeah, it's funny because when I hear Angel sit there and say, oh, we got a cold front coming in and we went from 75 to 55. I'm like, Angel, you're my guy. I love you. But, shut up. Right? Like, I don't want to hear it. Eagles are selling pints of snow. What is Coastal Sports Network selling by the pint for 50? I mean, listen, going to have a little merch soon, Joey. Pints of snow? Whew, man. Are you kidding me? What's the weather supposed to be like? Hold on, let's check. Sunday, 39. Football weather. I don't see any snow. Let's do our Doppler radar. Our meteorologist is out and about. Let's see. Sunday, what do we got here? Snow and ice. Philadelphia Eagles snow from Sunday's playoff win sells out. Wow. So they're selling snow from Jesus God. Wow. I mean, is anyone taking on yellow snow? I mean, that's just a thought. You see yellow snow, 2 things. Don't pick it up. Don't eat it. Not good. 727-858-6650. All right, MVP. So here's the list. Allen, who helped the Bills win their 5th straight AFC East title, threw for close to 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, just 6 picks, 104.4 passer rating, also ran for 530 yards and 12 scores. Saquon, 2,000 yards, 2005. The 8th best total in NFL history. Sat out, obviously, the Eagles' final game of the regular season. Needed 101 yards to break Eric Dickerson's record. Helped the Eagles win the NFC East. Advanced to the conference championship. Remember, it's a regular season. Burrow put up ridiculous numbers. Josh Burrow threw for pretty much 5,000 yards and 43 touchdowns. I mean, wow. That's unbelievable. It's one of the reasons that they had to get rid of a DC and hire a DC. Jared Goff threw for 4,600 yards, 37 touchdowns, 9 picks, and Detroit earned the number 1 seed, but they got bounced by Washington. And then you have Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP. His numbers were just insane. Career high, 4,100 passing yards, 42 touchdowns or 41 touchdowns, and just 4 picks. His passer rating was 119, which led the NFL. He was a first-team All-Pro for the 3rd time. He ran for almost 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jeez. I mean, all these players had phenomenal seasons, and they're going to start pulling votes from each other. I know I've been so adamant, beyond adamant, on Josh Allen. Like, I have to stick with Josh Allen. But when I read those numbers out loud to you guys, the stats, the body of work and the resume, I mean, hell, you can make a case for every player. You can make a case for Saquon Barkley, and we frown upon giving a running back the MVP. Typically, it's the quarterback because the quarterback's under center, face of the franchise, and he touches the ball the most. That's why we always defer. We always do that, right? Always. But I still feel it's like Allen, Lamar Jackson. Look, if Cincinnati won 12, 13 games and they played some defense, well, if they played defense, they were going to win 12 games. And they made the playoffs, Burrow's winning the MVP. His numbers were just off the chart. I mean, he had to put up numbers because their defense was giving up so many points. But how do you go wrong? I mean, Lamar Jackson is considered the favorite. He's still considered the favorite. And it's kind of like this back and forth, back and forth. Do we look at Lamar's playoff failures, even though it's a regular season award? Is that going to be weighing? Is that a factor when these voters vote? Burrow, are we going to factor in bad season? Well, he put up these numbers because the defense was so bad, he had to throw him back into games. Are we going to look at Saquon? He's a running back. And he plays behind the best offensive line in football. He wasn't going to do that with the Giants. Do you know the last time a running back won the award? Just shows you where we're at with the quarterback position. The last time a running back won the award was back in 2012. We're talking over a decade ago. And then prior to that, now what's interesting is there was a quick little surge. If you go back to 2000, Marshall Faulk had a ridiculous year. If you remember, Marshall Faulk he was the best player in football. Kurt Warner won it in 99. Remember Trent Green goes down. Here we go. We're going to rally around Kurt Warner, Cinderella story. Then Faulk wins it in 2000. Warner wins it again in 2001. Gannon comes back and has that great year for Oakland. Resurrects his career. And then they get hammered in the Super Bowl. Then you had Peyton, Steve McNair. You had a litany of running backs. Then Sean Alexander. People forget Sean Alexander won the award in 2005. 2 years later, LaDainian Tomlinson. So 2 out of 3 years. Actually, I'm sorry, back to back. Sean Alexander and LaDainian Tomlinson both won the award. We didn't see a running back win it for another 5, 6, 7 years until Adrian Peterson won it in 2012. The rest have all been quarterbacks. And the year that Adrian Peterson won it, he averaged right around 130 on the ground, well over 2,000 yards. He was the MVP. He was an AP All-Pro, Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, it was just, his numbers were off the charts. They were off the charts. And if you remember what happened that year, Minnesota got bounced. They got bounced in the wild card game. They were 10-6. They had to travel to Green Bay. They fell behind early, 17-3, and they lost that game. They got bounced. And the Packers were 11, 10, 10.5 point favorite in that game. And Peterson had a quiet 99 yards. So we look at the running back position very differently. That's why some of these guys are not getting paid. But from a, again, MVP standpoint, It's always the quarterback. No Baker for MVP. What say you, gas pump guy? Yeah, Baker put up a good year. I'm not going to pick on Baker Mayfield, but point being, it is a quarterback-driven league. It really is. You have to have the season that Saquon had. If it's any other year, if Burrow, Jackson, and Allen don't put up these types of numbers, Saquon's winning the award. And I don't want to hear this. You can't give it to Lamar Jackson because he's won it multiple times. That means nothing to me. I mean, Adrian Peterson ran away with the award. He ran away with the award. I think, who came in second place? I just pulled it up. Hold on. And that team was loaded too. Remember they had Percy Harvin on that team? Adrian Peterson. I want to get the voting for you. Because I don't even think it was close. 61%. It was 1-2. Him and Peyton Manning. And that year Manning had 37 touchdowns. Threw for almost 4,600 yards. The next year, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. The next year, Aaron Rodgers, J.J. Watt. DeMarco Murray got 4%. Cam Newton had the big year in 2015. That was his year. I mean, that was his year. Matt Ryan, Tom Brady was behind him. Derek Carr behind that. 2017, Brady. Todd Gurley got 15% of the votes. Carson Wentz thrown in there, 4%. 2018, Mahomes and Breeze. 2019, Lamar Jackson. Clear cut, defined, definitive MVP. 2021, Rodgers, Allen, Mahomes. Rodgers, 88 share, 44 votes. Rodgers again, 39 votes. 2022, Mahomes, Hurts got some votes. And then last year, again, 96 share for Lamar Jackson. When Lamar Jackson wins the MVP, I mean, he wins the MVP. He runs away winning the MVP. Nick and Wallingford chimes in. Q, I remember that year with Carson Wentz. If he doesn't get hurt with the Rams, they're probably going to give him the MVP, but I'm not so sure that the Eagles win the Super Bowl that year. Yeah, tore up his knee on the road against the Rams. And Foles came in, and the rest is history. Absolutely. It's a regular season award. It's a regular season award. Like, are we saying you're most valuable to the league, you're most valuable player on your team, or you're the best player on your team? I mean, I just gave you, Sunday, the best player on the field should be Saquon Barkley. But the second best player on the field, and it's a close second, is Jaden Daniels. And it's very, very rare that rookies get any type of consideration for MVP. It's extremely rare. And there are times where, you will have a season as a rookie that is overlooked. And I don't believe we can say that with Jaden Daniels. I honestly, I think what we're seeing is the start of I don't want to say Hall of Fame career, because that's a prisoner of the moment, right? But I think you're going to see a quarterback that's going to be a perennial All-Pro, an MVP. A couple of former GMs already said that, don't be shocked if he wins the MVP next year. That's high praise. I mean, typically that ascension from your first season to the second, that's how we measure you. Let me see the growth. And now all of a sudden we're saying, hey, watch this guy make the jump. Look, Roethlisberger was 13-0 his rookie season. 13-0. You remember that Pittsburgh team? 2004. 2004. The Steelers behind Roethlisberger. 13-0. That's the year they finished 15-1. They lost to the Ravens, and then they won 13 in a row. and then they beat the Jets, and then they lost in the AFC Championship. That game wasn't even close. They got blown out by New England. And everyone said, hey, here we go, Big Ben. That arc, great rookie season. It's trending up. Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, no doubt. But we were waiting to see what he was going to do the second, the third, the fourth season. So it's in play on Sunday, man. It's in play. I mean, these four quarterbacks have an opportunity to really do something special. Josh Allen has the opportunity to take a Buffalo Bills franchise that has not been this close since those Kelly teams in the 90s, right? 4 straight AFC. I mean, it was amazing what Buffalo did. It was amazing what they did, even though they were never able to get over the hump. Just to get to the Super Bowl like they did, it's just, and they had great teams. They had wonderful teams. I mean, Thurman Thomas would have been the MVP, Super Bowl 25, if Norwood's not wide right. He was just a man that day. He was a man. And I interviewed him about 2 years ago, and I remember I asked him, when you look back at all these teams, what comes to mind? And he basically said, what if? Like, what if? All you need is one. All you need is one. You win one Super Bowl, it changes the perception, the narrative, how you're viewed as a player or a head coach. It really does. It changes because most likely you're under the microscope and you had a hand in the win. In the NBA, it's a little different, right? Robert Horry, nice player. Had big shot Rob, clutch shots, winning rings left and right. But we know the architect of those teams. We know the 2 to 3 that stand out. Nothing to take away from Horry. He's a great player, clutch player when he needed to be. But point being is, you win multiple, 3, 4, 5. Okay. In the NFL, man, you win one, that's special. You win multiple Super Bowl rings. Now you're in a different category. You win 3, 4. I mean, we're talking GOAT status. For a guy like Josh Allen, if they go on the road, they knock off Kansas City, put it in perspective. You didn't just knock off the defending Super Bowl champs. You went on the road in Kansas City. You knocked off the back-to-back champs. You knocked off the great Kansas City Chiefs, Kelsey, Mahomes, Andy Reid. And now you're taking a team that has been so close 20-something odd years ago to the cusp, right near the mountaintop. If he does that, I mean, there's going to be a street named after Josh Allen in Buffalo. Jaden Daniels, Washington has had success. Washington has won Super Bowls. Washington has had various quarterbacks win Super Bowls, whether it was Rippon, whether it was Joe Theismann, whether it was Doug Williams, right? But now a downtrodden franchise, the joke of the NFL for 25 plus years, has the opportunity to just wash away all that nastiness, beat Philadelphia on the road. Jaden Daniels, a star. Jalen Hurts. Flip the script. Flip the script. So close a couple years ago. Doesn't happen. Argued a bad call, whatever on Bradbury. Come back, sit there. Hey, he's MVP candidate. They struggle, drop 6 or 7, get waxed by Tampa. Got to get rid of the head coach. Got to blow it up. Got to start from scratch. Jalen Hurts not a franchise quarterback. Well, all he's done is just been steady Eddie. That's it. He's just been steady Eddie. And I'm not about to say, you got to get there first. The argument, if Jalen Hurts wins the Super Bowl, let's have that conversation next week or after if they get in the Super Bowl and they win it. The greatest all-time Philadelphia Eagle in franchise history and quarterback. I mean, but he can flip the script because I think a lot of the Philly fans look at Jalen Hurts and they believe the Eagles can win in spite of Jalen Hurts. And I think that's doing a great disservice to Jalen Hurts. I really do. I think Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. I think there's moments where you say, wow, this guy is really good. Carson Wentz was kind of the same way. I remember texting my buddies back and forth. I was like, does this kid ever miss on a pass? Like, you just see these moments of brilliance, of excellence. But it's all about consistency. But he's got an opportunity to get this team back in the Super Bowl because they're the odds-on favorite. And then, obviously, I mentioned Daniels and his superstar, his, path to stardom. And then you have Patrick Mahomes. And I know people are so tired of seeing Kansas City. It's like every year when the Patriots were winning. The Patriots, every single solitary year, we get tired of watching it. Tom Brady, but you have to marvel at their greatness. You have to respect what they were doing. There's a sense of jealousy, is there not? A sense of jealousy. And man, why can't my franchise, my team win 12, 13, 14 games a year and make these deep runs in the playoffs? And they have arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. You're jealous. Give me some of that. Spread some of that love my way. So now you've got Patrick Mahomes that can get Kansas City back to the Super Bowl for the third straight season, win it again, which would mean a three-peat, and that's it. Patrick Mahomes wins another Super Bowl back to back to back. Montana had an opportunity, 88, 89, and then 90. He got knocked out in that 90 game at a Candlestick. Leonard Marshall knocked him out. Pat Summerall with the great line, right? There will be no three-peat. The report from the 49ers sideline is everything hurts. Giants won with a backup in Hostetler. They had the fake punt with Gary Reasons, Mac Barr, 5 field goals, 15-13. Boom. Here we go. Imagine, Montana, I will always say I've never seen a quarterback as great as Joe Montana. Joe Montana just had ice water in his veins, man. You were never, you can be on your last breath, but if you had Montana, you had a shot. You had a shot. If you saw number 16 coming out and 49ers were down 6 with a $1:13 to go and one timeout and they had to go 75, you felt pretty good. You felt pretty good about your odds and your chances. Then you start to see, Tom Brady come into play, Peyton Manning, and the new breed quarterback, the guy really singing and sitting in the pocket. And these guys come from behind, game-winning drives. And I'm like, wow, this kid out of Michigan is clutch, right? This kid can play. Brady can play. And we're always trying to replace those guys. And now we have Mahomes. So right away, we're looking at who's going to replace Mahomes, right? Is Mahomes the old man? Did we forget about Pat? No, Mahomes is young. Mahomes got a lot of good football left. But he wins it again. Is he mortal? Is he immortal? Where do we start to put Patrick Mahomes on that list? And look, I'll say this, and Scott chiming in Q, you got to check. I know you're a big guy doing research, but check this. How many quarterbacks do you think have won the NFL MVP but lost in the playoffs that year? Wow. Well, I gave you a couple already. I would say, man, that's a great question. That's a great question. I'd have to really look that up. I know a couple years with Rodgers, obviously Lamar Jackson, 3, 4, 5 right there. Gannon, I don't know. If we're saying what? The last 25, I bet you 23 or 24 haven't won the Super Bowl. I'll say that, right? E chimes in Q. It's a good argument for why MVP is a bad award. No one really cares about regular season success. If it's followed by an early playoff out, just like your guy, Sam Darnold, will get less money for poor postseason performance. MVP should be taken away too. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't. Casey chimes in. Q, that's definitely the rub. First Super Bowl winner and MVP since Warner back in 1999. Yeah, I'm not. Listen, it's a regular season award. Like, are we trying to draw parallels here? Is that what we're trying to do? Is it like the curse of winning the MVP? Because if somebody gets robbed of the MVP, you guys are going nuts. You guys are absolutely going nuts. The guy got robbed. He got screwed. Deserves to win the MVP. It just so happens that, you got beat by the better team. You got beat by the better team. That's all that means. And that typically happens sometimes. That's why, in the playoffs, it's not like college football where typically the best team always finds a way to win. NFL playoffs, man, how many upsets have we seen? How many top seeds have we seen at home get bounced, get beat? Pittsburgh for years lost a lot of games at home. The Packers, remember when they said Lambeau? No one can go into Lambeau. Eli beat them twice. Michael Vick and the Falcons went into Lambeau and beat the Packers. It's you can go on the road and win. You can go on the road and win. It's not as hard as we think. Buffalo has a puncher's chance. They do. And Washington has a puncher's chance. You have to play clean games when you're on the road. You can't leave it up to chance. I mean, I know people will joke Kansas City and the referees in their back pocket. And okay, fine. I gave you the numbers. We did the splits, about Kansas City getting favorable calls. But Buffalo understands that every time Patrick Mahomes runs out of the pocket and he's getting near the sideline, he's going to start to do that goofy stuff. And I know, what's Patrick Mahomes supposed to say? Listen, if I agree with Brady. Brady came out and said quarterbacks who scramble should lose their protection. And I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Like even I text my buddies this, get rid of sliding. Hit him up top, hit him around the waist. I don't want this game on Sunday where Patrick Mahomes is flushed out of the pocket and all of a sudden the ref's holding on to the hanky, getting ready to throw it because he starts to slow up right before he gets to the sideline. Like, what's a linebacker? What's an edge rusher? What's a DB supposed to do? You're talking 25, 30 miles an hour. Boom. It's a collision sport. These guys got to slow up because he decides he wants to slow up a little bit and then do the act and theatrics. And he can come out and say that Kansas City doesn't get favorable calls. I gave you the numbers the other day. And it's not so much, when Kansas City fans come back and attack me or saying I'm being overly critical or it's just whining or nonsense, it's not so much like the raw numbers. So follow me. If I say in this game, Kansas City got, penalized 5 times and Buffalo got penalized, 10 times, then you guys will come back. See, Kansas City doesn't get the flags. Hold on a second. Let's look at the flags that Buffalo was hit with. Did they get 2 personal fouls or 2 roughing the passer calls in the same series on the same drive? Like that is what rankles the NFL fan. That's why the NFL fan thinks that at times the league favors Kansas City. And you go back to the Texans game and you can make a case that, there were some bad calls. I mean, Kansas City was flagged 4 times in that game. Texans were flagged 8. Now, that's not a big time major discrepancy, but I can show you some games this year where Kansas City got the brunt of the calls. And that's not whining. That's not crying. That's not complaining. It's not. But I can also give you a game where Kansas City got more calls than their opponent. When they played Pittsburgh, I think they got flagged 9 times and Pittsburgh got flagged 4 times. So, we want to say it kind of evens itself out. But mind you, that game was also on the road. They traveled to Pittsburgh. Let's just take the game that they played Kansas City in the regular season. And they hosted that game. I'm sorry. Houston went on the road to take on Kansas City. In that game, the Texans were penalized 6 times. Kansas City was penalized twice. I mean, so, I don't want to say we're splitting hairs, but you have to be fair. You got to be fair and objective with this. They get the calls, and you got to work through it. All right, fast approaching the 5 o'clock hour. By the way, we are brought to you by our good friends right here over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Check out the show notes. Click the link. That's for our gambling segment, BYP with the pod, BYP20. Put that in with the promo code. You'll get 20% off your first purchase of Fresh Roasted Coffee. Give them a follow on X, like them on Facebook as well. Also, Zen Auto Concepts, the #1 detailing shop in the state of Florida, located in Stuart, Florida. And congratulations to our good friends over at Play It Again Sports in Deptford. They opened up a brand new store in Mount Laurel. But as I mentioned, their Play It Again Sports in Deptford is conveniently located 1450 Clements Ridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. They are open 7 days a week. Yes, their hours might vary, but typically it's 10 to 6, 10 to 5 on Sunday, and then 10 to 8 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then, as I alluded to, 10 to 6 on Saturday, 10 to 8 on Friday. Give them a call, 856-579-8250. Give them a follow on X and on Facebook and on Twitter. They'll give you some good bang for the buck for your used purchase. Of course, your used sports equipment and more. They also accept local gift cards, and they're running that through January 31st. So again, local gift cards, they do accept that, and they'll give you some good value for that. All right, 727-858-6650. We are fast approaching 5 o'clock hour. Let's sneak in a little comment before we hit top of the hour at 5 on a Thursday. Vince chimes in. Refs always make questionable calls. That's why you consistently hear guys say we can't put ourselves in the position to let the refs affect the outcome. It's a known variable. You just have to adapt. It's a very astute point, Vince. It is. That's when the players come out and say we can't shoot ourselves in the foot, right? How many times do we hear that? We can't shoot ourselves in the foot. If you are Washington and you are Buffalo and you know you got to go on the road, you're right. You can ill afford to have bad penalties. You know, a PI call is subjective, but roughing the passer, you got to know when to lay up. You know, hands to the face, you know, you got to know. Sometimes you just got to lay up a little bit. Now, with Joe Witt Jr. saying what he said, I'm going to tell you, again, why I have no problem with that, but I'm also going to tell you why the NFL's ears perked up with those comments as well. And I'll see if I can bring them up on the studio. If not, I'll try to play them through the speaker and you guys can hear it, but we'll do that on the other side. 60 to book, 60 to play with. We are fast approaching 5 o'clock. We'll take you up to 6 right here on a Thursday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here, Mira Mano. Angel Martinez on the road. He'll be back in the saddle tomorrow. We got a full slate of shows. Pete Shepard will start you off, 7 to 10, Pete Shepard Show. Martinez and Company, 10 to 12, and myself, The Drive with Q, 4 to 6. All right, we'll get into Witt's comments. I'll tell you why I think the NFL's ears really perked up on that one as we hit top of the hour, 5 o'clock on the East Coast, and appreciate everyone in Southwest Florida keeping us tuned in, Jersey Shore as well, Philly, DMV, Delaware, out west, Midwest. You guys are fantastic. Rhode Island, New York, North Jersey. You guys are unbelievable. Keep the comments coming at 727-858-6650. 5 o'clock straight up.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class, let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Download the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game app and tell your friends that Florida has a new leader in digital sports radio.
All right, 5 o'clock straight up on the East Coast on a Thursday edition of The Drive with Q. Rick Quinones here. You guys out there, you've been fantastic. Keep the comments, the tweets coming. Jerry in Rhode Island. That's exactly right. It's not the amount of flags. It's the drive-saving flags they throw against the other team. Preview of okay. Sometimes when I see multiple comments coming in, I have to jump from them. But yes, Jerry, you are correct. It is the timing of the flag. So hopefully you guys are going to be able to hear this. I'm not as technically sound as Angel is when it comes to embedding the studio stuff. But that being said, this is Joe Witt. And let's see if you guys can hear this. Hit him. Hit him. Hit him. Yep. Hit him. Hopefully you guys heard that. I'm sure that you will comment if you didn't hear. But that's Joe Witt. That's the Washington Commanders defensive coordinator. And again, I don't have an issue with this. I have no issue with this. Now, I'll tell you who's probably going to have an issue with this. The NFL hears those comments. And again, this is the NFL. And we know that the quarterback is the player that we can't touch. We all agree. When it comes to the quarterback, lay off, hands off, go away. Cállate. Don't touch. Okay. We hear those comments. You know Nick Sirianni already made a call to the league, and you know come Sunday he's going to pull the refereeing, officiating crew to the side to kind of reiterate. Just to come, reiterate, oh, by the way, here we go. Oh, by the way, let's keep an eye on these defenders against my quarterback. Let's protect my quarterback. Now, you can take this two ways. You can take this where Joe Witt is also sending a message to Dan Quinn. Listen, we're going to play a hard-nosed game. Let us play. Referee the game, but let us play. Right? Like it's not testing the refs. It's almost like let us play. Let us do what we need to do. Or you take this where the comments become misconstrued and all of a sudden it's now we got to protect the quarterback a little more. And every time Washington or a DB or a tackle, or I should say defensive tackle or an edge rusher or a linebacker maybe pokes, prods, and picks and touches Jalen Hurts, after the throw where he's running to the sideline, they're going to get a flag. Now, I believe it's a little of both, to be quite honest with you. I also believe that ultimately this game will get decided in the trenches. I already gave you the X factors, but the fact that Witt said what he said, rest assured that that's a message that's being conveyed inside the Eagles locker room. But I also believe it's a message that's being conveyed to the NFL, to the league office, to the referees come Sunday. So it's either poking the bear, prodding the bear, or also basically saying, look, we're going to hit the quarterback. Let us play football. Let us play. Like, what are we supposed to do? Once he's out of the pocket, it's fair game. And again, I got no issue with that as we welcome in our good friend Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. You hear him during the week on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, typically on Mondays 8 to 9. He's kind enough to join us for a couple moments on a Thursday edition of The Drive. All right, my man. What do you make of those comments?
Well, Q, the quarterbacks are going to get hit, and it's a situation where the referees, you can't leave it in their hands. You got to stay away from them, and they're always going to protect the quarterback no matter what. So, the defensive guys, they're at a loss because it's an offensive game right now, and you don't want to poke the bear, as you said. Going after the NFL, it's just not going to help you. It's just going to pull bullseye on a player, and they're going to get the flags against them. And so, yeah, they probably should say, okay, yeah, we're going to behind closed doors. Yeah, we need to maybe take out Hurts or whoever it is, the old bounty gate. But putting it out there for public consumption, that's just not going to help yourself.
See, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's putting the spotlight on him, Quinn putting the spotlight on them, maybe trying to take it away from Washington, take it away from Daniels. See, what's going to happen is if the Eagles win this game and Hurts doesn't get touched, then we push the narrative. See, this is what happens. You can't give them fodder in the locker room. Man, you don't need any extra motivation come Sunday, right? And listen, it's the NFC Championship. I remember when Eli and the Giants went in the candlestick and played the 49ers, he dropped back to pass 37 times. I think he was sacked 7 times in that game. He got absolutely destroyed. Like, this is the AFC Championship. Let these guys go out and play football.
Yeah, and Quinn's a defensive guy, so he wants his guys to pin their ears back and try to get some heat on. And we know defensively, Washington, they only have a few pieces. They have Luvo at linebacker, and they have Payne and Allen up front, and then Chin in the back. But other than that, they don't have a lot of defensive playmakers. And he's trying to rally his troops, so it's going to be an interesting game. I think first and foremost, though, they have to stop Saquon because, yeah, Hurts, everybody thinks the quarterback's the main guy, but Saquon is the engine that makes the Eagles go.
Listen, we can both agree that the two best players on the field Sunday, I mean, arguably the 4 best, Allen and Mahomes in the AFC, and then the NFC, it's going to be Daniels and Barkley. I mean, they're the 2 best players. Now, let's take it from an Eagles standpoint for a moment. I feel as though this is an overused cliche and a loaded question, but the pressure, right? The pressure right now. We always talk about it, do we not? Let me get the Duke out. Hold on. We talk about this all the time. The Duke, your confidence level, the barometer, the pressure on the Duke right now. We got to pump this baby out with air. How much of it is on Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts right now? Or more importantly, I feel as though it's more on Jalen Hurts. And I've kind of walked back some of the Eagles fans where, let him go out and play. If the numbers aren't gaudy, it's okay. If he plays a clean game, he's upright, he makes smart decisions, and they win the football game, you take it and you run with it. So that being said, the pressure on Sirianni and Jalen Hurts to not only perform well, coach well, but win on Sunday.
It's huge, Q. It's a home playoff game. They're a 5.5-point favorite. That was the line that I saw early on. It may have changed a little bit, but it's a situation where the expectations are, yes, you defend home turf, and you're playing a rookie quarterback and a team, let's face it, in Washington. Jaden Daniels, a lot of people are saying he's a one-man gang. I'm not going to go that far, but the Eagles are better on paper than Washington Commanders, and it's a situation where Sirianni, he's got to make the right decisions, and he's had that bullseye on him all season. We know people have questioned his decision making, his theatrics, etc. Is he really the man in charge? And then it falls down to Jalen Hurts because let's face it, the Eagles have been winning games, but it has been Saquon, and they've been running for less than about 180 yards per game in this winning streak. So it's on both of them, but particularly those two. Everybody's going to look at them, and whatever the cards fall, they're going to say, "Oh, it's on Hurts, it's on Sirianni." But I always say, look at Saquon and the defense when it comes to Eagles.
And listen, you get to the quarterback, you run the football, and you play defense. That's how you win in January. I mean, that's right. You don't need to go out of your way and just do something out of the ordinary. And I think with Jalen Hurts, they want the gaudy numbers. Some of the fan bases want they want that fantasy football. They want to hit those player props. They want those 20 of 28 for 288. Just win. Just go in there and win. I mean, Saquon is a different animal. You know what you're going to get. 2, 3, 4 yards, then boom, 17, 18, 25, boom, the big hitter. That's who Saquon is. With Jalen, they're going to look back to that Rams game. All right, the knee's compromised. He can't move around. He's hanging in the pocket. You got a tight end crossing. He takes the sack, which turns out to be a safety, which could have been costly. Like the decision making, like who do you trust more late in this game? Sirianni or Jalen Hurts?
That's a good question there. I guess I would trust Hurts better because me, I've never been a Sirianni guy in terms of his decision making, and the team sometimes wins in spite of him. I think they've been fortunate this year to really lean on our coordinators. I think Kellen Moore's doing a nice job with the offense. After the bye week, he kind of was like, you know what, we're going to be a running team, and dictate the pace of the game with this big offensive line, and then Fangio in terms of that defense that's ranked, points allowed. They're only allowing 17.8 points per game, number one in the National Football League. So the pressure is going to be on Sirianni to make the right decisions, but if he's smart, he'll kind of let his guys do their thing, and then he'll take all the credit.
Joe D and Summers Point chiming in. Q, always love the football talk with your guy, Lloyd. You go back to the ground game with Saquon. Look at all the yards that Washington's given up. You mentioned it. You were a little surprised that Tampa Bay didn't run the ball more. Detroit ran all over them. I suspect Saquon could have $150 to $175 in this game. Yeah, I think it's going to set. Washington's run defense is very suspect. They're extremely suspect. They give up a lot of yards.
Yes, they got Allen back, which was huge for them, and he's the middle of that defense, and they have Luvo and Bobby Wagner. He may be a Hall of Famer, borderline guy, but he's a little long in the tooth, and I do agree with you that they are susceptible to the run. You look at the two games they played against the Eagles. Eagles went 26-18 in that game. Saquon, 26 rushes, 146, 2 TDs. With those long, a 39-yarder, 23-yard touchdown run in a game that they lost. Saquon, 29 rushes, 150, 2 TDs. So he ate against his team, whether the Eagles won or lost. So he's got to be the guy that they have the bullseye on. But that offensive line, I can't say enough about him. Juergens is a little banged up, but that right side of the line, Becton and Lane Johnson, they're just road graders, and they're running behind him every single time.
Yeah, listen, won and lost in the trenches from the dawn of time, right? Even when the cavemen were playing with the rocks as footballs, it's in the trenches. That's just how you win. All right, AFC, and we'll talk more about these games and we'll handicap them on BYP tomorrow. Back your play, as Lloyd always joins me during the NFL season. You look at the AFC side, and all these quarterbacks have an opportunity to do something very special, right? Josh Allen could take the Bills, win their first Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts, can just cement his potential Eagle legacy. Jaden Daniels, rising superstar. Hey, a rookie going to the Super Bowl, winning it. Never been done. Here we go. And then you got Patrick Mahomes, right? And the legacy is already cemented. Man, I'll tell you, the more I look at this game, the more I dissect it, I really feel as though Buffalo has a big time puncher shot and chance to win this game if they can weather that early storm. Like, even if you take the lead against Kansas City, the Chiefs aren't going to panic. But my gut tells me they're going to have to try to run the ball against Kansas City. And Allen, let him be that gunslinger. And if you die with your boots on, so be it. But let him go out firing.
You're right, Q. The game they beat Kansas City this season, Week 11 in Buffalo, 30-21. Josh Allen did put on that Superman cape. 27 of 40, 262, one touchdown, and then he ran the ball 12 times, 55, and one TD. So, he did what was necessary, and he's going to have that Herculean effort, as you were kind of alluding to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs, they're tough. In a one-score game, they won 16 straight games. So, maybe Buffalo needs to take the ball, try to take some air out of it, get a lead themselves, and then try to go against that defense that Spagnuolo has put together. Don't forget Jones and Karlaftis and Bolton on that defense. The KC defense, no one talks about them, but they have a lot of teeth on that defense.
They do. And their run defense has played better. Their run defense has gotten progressively better. That's kind of been their bugaboo. Like, this to me, is this a legacy defining game for Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen? Or is it already, we know about Patrick Mahomes' legacy, but is this a legacy defining game for Josh Allen?
It is. He can stamp himself as this season's MVP. He already beat Lamar head to head, and I know he didn't have great numbers last week, but he did the job when necessary, made the right decisions. But if he wants to compete head to head with Patrick Mahomes, yes, he's beaten him in the regular season, but his record against him in the playoffs, particularly in Kansas City, is not good. Mahomes is 3-0 against the Bills in the playoffs, so. It's going to be interesting to see if he's able to rise to the occasion. Last week they ran the ball with Davis, Cook. I was kind of surprised that Coop didn't get any catches for them. So Allen's going to have to get everybody involved. And then, as you were talking about, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, they're already HOFs. they're in the Hall of Fame. going for an unprecedented three-peat. And when you look at teams that were trying for a three-peat, it just never happened, and they all kind of sputter out for different reasons. I think this Chiefs team, they're going to have to find ways Q to score some points. He has some weapons now, Hollywood Brown, but they're going to have to put up some points because this Bills team, let's not forget, they were number 2 in the NFL in scoring, 30.9 points per game.
D chimes in. Q, as a Bills fan, I think they not only have to run the football, but they have to stop the run. I think Kansas City is going to try to open it up early. I look for this to be a high-scoring game. Can Buffalo win this game scoring 24 points? No, they can't. Buffalo's, in my opinion, is they have to score 28 to 31. Now, I don't hear too many people talking about this. Kansas City pretty much is getting all their pieces back, right, to their offense. If we were to find a weakness in Kansas City, it's the offensive line. I mean, it's patchwork right now. Like, Buffalo has to get to Patrick Mahomes. They have to.
They do, and Thuney has been moved from guard out to the left tackle position. We know he's an All-Pro at guard, but his footwork's not the best at left tackle. So maybe you get Vaughn Miller and Epinesa and some of these other guys on the edge to kind of beat him. And I do agree with the caller there that you have to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be key because when he's comfortable, he's going to pick you apart back there. And you see the way Kelsey's playing right now. Kelsey had a huge game last week and kind of reinvented himself, and he's going to be working in the middle of the field. They have to find ways with blitzes and so forth. And I know McDermott and the rest of that defense are going to be trying to dial that up.
Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us on a Thursday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. 16 past 5 o'clock hour. We'll take up to 6 o'clock straight up. Don't forget to check us out on SR 1029 FM The Game. Of course, we are Southwest Florida's newest game in town, part of Coastal Sports Network. Mi hermano Angel Martinez back in the saddle tomorrow, Mañana on Friday, with Martinez and company, 10 to 12. You can always catch Lloyd every Monday, 8 to 9, with Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. As we're talking keys to Kansas City, Buffalo, Bills Mafia, Chiefs Kingdom. Got a lot of comments coming in. I am curious to get your thoughts on this when we talk about the path of victory. You do have to wonder, again, with the officiating, and I know it's the elephant in the room, but certainly in a close game, we know the calls have favored Kansas City in the past. And mind you, they're at home in this game. We know where they're at right now, having an opportunity to get back to the Super Bowl, three-peat, back-to-back-to-back. Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey, their weapons, Andy Reid at home. I feel as though there's going to be a moment or two in this game where Buffalo is going to get screwed. Buffalo is going to have, just a bad PI called against them, or Mahomes scrambling and then, tippy-toeing through the tulips near the sideline, and the edge rusher has to back off, or he touches them, he blows on them, and you get 15. My point is this. They're going to have to just endure that. They're going to have to find I'll leave it like this. I'll give you the boxer's analogy. Any fighter that predominantly is successful in the States and they want to fight for a world title and they go to Europe or overseas, they've already lost 2 rounds. Going in, you're behind on the scorecard. Buffalo probably says to themselves, we already know we're down 7-0. Like in the mind, you can't allow it to play tricks on you, but I believe they have to show some mental fortitude and toughness. And the reason I bring this up is because me, McDermott scares the bejeebuses out of me. Like, I don't know what this guy's thinking sometimes. Like, all right, if you're only down 10-3, are you going for it on 4th and 6? If it's 13-3 and you score a touchdown, he's going to sit there and say, let's go for 2 and chase a point. Like, they have to weather that storm. And that coach, as what, can't be up as what.
Well, this is a big spot for Sean. He came up underneath Andy Reid. When I first met Sean, he was holding Andy Reid's cord. He was his assistant. And he's going against his mentor, so he's got to be aggressive. He's got to, balls to the wall. This is it. It's now or never, because you're right. They're going in there to Kansas City, tough place to play. The crowd's going to be rocking. The weather may be a factor, and all week I've been getting stuff from like the NFL and people saying, really the Chiefs don't get all the calls. Well, last week you saw against Houston, 8 penalties for Houston, only 4 for Kansas City. So it is a factor. And when teams are rolling and they're the dynasty team, I remember so many times with the Patriots, like they probably would have lost to the Jaguars that time if not for that holding call. Remember on the interception that
Yep.
would have probably sent the Jaguars a Super Bowl. So it's always something with these dynasty type teams, and the Bills are going to have to, as you said, weather a storm. And the key things are making adjustments. Okay. So at halftime, in game adjustments, they're going to be huge in this one. And of course, we talked about last week, turnovers are the key. You got to protect the football. Every team that won last week didn't have any turnovers. And, they got to make Patrick Mahomes make a mistake, and that can open the door for this team.
Yeah, I want to go back to it was a text comment from Jerry in Rhode Island, and he wrote before talking about the refs. It's exactly right. It's not the amount of flags; it's the drive-saving flags the refs throw against the other team. That's kind of the argument I was making. Like the other day, I was doing the pros and cons. I was looking at the numbers. I was looking at the stats. We were talking about what flags were benefiting, how many flags, how many false start, offsides, roughing the pass. It's the drive killing flags. Like that's where I have a problem. I don't want to see in the fourth quarter Buffalo scratching, clawing, grinding its way to a 17-16 or a 21-17 lead, and there's under 7 to go, and all of a sudden, Mahomes, again, dilly-dallies, tiptoes through the tulips, and they don't even touch him. And then it's a 15-yard penalty, and you get a fresh set of downs. Like that, for a road team that's already battling the impossible, that's a liver shot. That can be so deflating. Like they have to know and understand there's going to be early adversity in this game, and they have to just weather that storm.
Yes, and they're going to have the mental toughness. And when you looked at their locker room last week in their celebration, you saw that this is a cohesive group. And Josh Allen talked about in his post game interview how he didn't have his best game, but as a team, they won this. And that's how they're going to have to go in there. They're going to have to go in there, that bunker mentality that is us against the world, against the referees and the crowd and everything. And they're going to have to shut them up. And this is their chance. They've wanted this opportunity for quite some time. Like, we remember 2020 going in 13 seconds game, and they feel a lot of times that they're just as good as the Chiefs, and they can, go in there, give them a shot, and win this thing. And the key thing, obviously, is they did have some injuries last week, and we'll see if Rapp is going to play and some of the other players, but they're going to need all hands on deck for this game. And I think it's going to be an exciting game, to be honest with you.
I think the X factor is going to be Josh Allen. I think there's going to be a point in this game, Lloyd, where, the great players always decide it's my time. I have to be special. I have to will my team. If the offense isn't generating points, we're not mustering any, I got to start scrambling. I got to take shots. I need my legs, my heart. I got to improvise. I feel as though the X factor is going to be Josh Allen. And I can see the Bills with the ball down 5 late in this game when under 4 to go. And you just sit back and you say, this is why this kid's going to go to a Hall of Fame. I think this is going to be his moment come Sunday.
Yeah, I think it was John Elway was at the '98 Super Bowl. The over my dead body dive at the goal line where he's an old quarterback. He's got to get it done, and he does. And it may take one of those types of situations. And my extra factor probably will be in that game. You got to look at Chris Jones. They got to block him. They got to control him in the middle of that line. And the Bills offensive line, you have Deion Dawkins and some of the other guys are a little above average, but they got to make sure Jones is blocked, Karlaftis, and then of course Kelsey. He came out of nowhere last week. I've been following him all fantasy season, and he was a little damn. Last week he came to play, and they're going to have to cover the middle of the field. Milano's a little banged up, but the Bills need him in this game.
Yeah, I just think sometimes it's your time and you have to take advantage. And I had a lot of, Bills and Kansas City football fans in general. They were kind of going back and forth with me this week. I said, I think Buffalo would want it this way. I don't think the Bills want it any other way. They would love to win in Buffalo, but to go on the road and know that it's an uphill battle against Kansas City at home and the refs, and you have an opportunity to dethrone the champs and, basically upset the apple cart, dethrone the dynasty. How do you not want to relish that opportunity?
It's a huge opportunity. And I go back to when I was a kid. I still remember 1980. The Eagles had to beat the Dallas Cowboys. That was the big bad giant in the room. And the game was in Philly, but the Eagles were an underdog. And they found a way, and when Wilbert went in the end zone, that just lifted the whole city, the whole team, and that's the type of thing that Buffalo needs in this type of game. So I think it's going to be a great watch, and it's going to be fun to see these two coaches battle against each other because they have history, and there's so many people on the Bills staff and on KC staff that have an Eagles background.
Yeah, and remember too, that Montgomery play was their first offensive series. I mean, that pretty much broke Dallas's will, right? I mean, that set
Right.
the tone for that game. And listen, who knows? You remember the opening kickoff against Tampa Bay? Brian Mitchell went right down the
Yeah.
sidelines, right? But obviously, we know how that ended. Bishop's trying to still chase Joe Jurevicius. Go back real quick with me for a moment. And Lloyd Van's kind enough to join us 525 on a Thursday edition of The Drive with Q. Don't forget, download DSR 1029 FM, the game app. Talk about Jaden Daniels in Washington. And, we talk X factors. Do you believe that there's going to be, just like in the AFC Championship game, where Washington gets punched right in the gut? But I've watched enough of this kid and this team this year where they don't blink. I almost, I don't like to retract a statement. I don't like doing that, but maybe I used a poor choice of words. I don't believe they're playing with house money anymore. I just think their mentality is they are loose, they are confident. We're going to punch you in the mouth. You're going to punch us in the mouth, but we're going to play you for 60. Like, I feel as though they believe to a man they can go into Philadelphia and win this game on Sunday.
They do because Q, let's not forget, it was week 16. They knocked Hurts out of the game and they beat him 36-33. So they saw with their own eyes that they could get this thing done. And you and I have talked so many years, and I was like, oh, these rookie quarterbacks, at a certain point, their season's over. But, with Jaden Daniels, I don't believe that. This young man, as you said, Dan Quinn has this group dialed in, new organization in
Oh,
terms
yeah.
of Joshua Harris and what he's done, bringing Adam Peters, a general manager, and just the whole organization mentality has changed. They think they can go toe to toe with the Eagles. Yes, we know on paper in terms of the roster that the Eagles have more talent, and they're going to be loose because what, they're the underdog. They have nothing to lose. So, and this young guy, he never gets too high, too low, and he's no longer a rookie in my eyes. He's played so much football that he's just spectacular. He led the NFL in TD passes. So, he runs around and makes plays. So the Eagles, particularly, you talk about an X factor, Zach Bond has got to do a job on Jaden Daniels. I think they'll probably spy him a little bit. And Carter's got to get some heat up the middle of that line. And it's on the Eagles defense because – we talked earlier about some of the deficiencies with the offense where they lean on Saquon, but I think it's up to the Eagles defense to match Jaden Daniels and kind of limit his opportunities.
We'll have a full preview of the games respectively tomorrow on Saturday, Lloyd and myself on BYP. Little housekeeping, a couple of reports out there. Former Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll is growing more interest from the Raiders brass for the head coaching vacancy. Per league sources, Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo also has drawn interest from the Raiders. Is from Josina Anderson, who basically, among others, pretty much we called that Aaron Glenn going to New York. I did wanted to get your thoughts on that, and also Trent Baalke before we get into this MVP discussion in the NFL. Are the Jets just kind of retreading here? Are the Jets basically, hey, we're going to go out, we're going to get the defensive guy, the bright guy, the emerging talent, the candidate, a la like a Robert Saleh, and he's going to come in, we're going to run through the wall, and then we're going to endure, bad seasons. I don't think that's the case with Aaron Glenn. I think Woody Johnson needs to be very, very patient here. And there's already talk that Aaron Glenn wants Aaron Rodgers to return.
Yeah, he may very well get him back, and Woody Johnson likes a defensive coach. Look, he had Todd Bowles, Rex Ryan had a lot of success there, and now they're bringing Aaron Glenn, the former draft pick for them, knows the organization. Hopefully, they can turn it around. I still think their roster is a little bit old. They got to figure out what they're going to do at the GM position and go from there. But it's going to be interesting to see how Glenn kind of turns his team around. And if Rodgers does come back, he's 41 years old, and they really should not let him have the autonomy they did in the past. They should kind of build a roster and then say, Aaron, this is what we've given you. Now you work with it. You're not dictating the terms any longer.
No, that's easier said than done. And then you got Baalke out. in Jacksonville. I mentioned this the other day. I don't know, was he sabotaging the organization? I mean, when Shad Khan came out and said what he said during that press conference on that Zoom call, where basically, yeah, if a head coach comes in and gives me his input, maybe I'll get rid of this guy. I mean, was it to the point where no potential head coaching candidate wanted to deal with Balky?
Well, Balky has a reputation around the National Football League, particularly his time with the Niners, where him and Harbaugh could not get along, and we know that Harbaugh won that situation. And then in Jacksonville, the team just underachieved, and then the roster was just not particularly good. He had some very bad drafts. He tried to fix that offensive line over and over again, and did not surround Trevor Lawrence with enough. Yeah, they did have some playmakers that they brought in, but in terms of the offensive line and the defense, it just was not there. So, uh, going to start anew, and I'm hearing maybe Robert Salah come in there as the head coach, and um, which would be surprising to me. Q, we talked about his record. I think it was 20-36, and maybe Shad Khan seeing something that we're not. But Jacksonville's quite a mess, and that's why it's always talked about. Should there even be a team in Jacksonville? Maybe put that team overseas full time in London or something like that.
But that doesn't remedy the situation because the owner's still the owner.
Yeah, Shaq on it, and like we always say, these are billionaires. It's their toy. Ain't nobody going to tell them what to do with their team, and you know they've been downtrodden for quite some time. Yeah, they had that little rebirth a couple years ago where I talked about, and but other than that, they've kind of struggled through the years, and you think you'd want to start anew and not get a retread coach, but it's a tough place to get uh, one of those young offensive McVay type of minds to come to because those guys want to go in a better situation.
Two more before I let you get out of here. AP, NFL, MVP. The finalists were announced: Allen, Saquon, Lamar, also Jared Goff, which I think could be a surprise. Joe Burrow. Again, the more I look at these numbers and I kind of break it down, imagine if Joe Burrow actually had a defense and they won 11 to 12 games. If Lamar and Josh Allen didn't have the type of seasons that they had any other year, it would have been Saquon this year. I mean, again, throw a dart, see what sticks. Who's your NFL MVP?
To me, the NFL MVP is Josh Allen. I think he had those splash plays that we talked about. Yes, Lamar's numbers were a little bit better, but he enhanced the Chiefs, the Bills, just so much. Without him, that team isn't going anywhere. And great running the football, um, decision making, passing it, etc. He's just lifted that whole organization. So I think he's going to be the MVP this season. Obviously, Lamar Jackson had made a great case because his numbers are better than the
Oh,
two times he won MVP.
yeah, yeah. And it was also, again, we talked a little bit about in the 4 o'clock hour, brought to my attention that, you look at some of these MVP awards over the years and these guys are getting bounced in the playoffs. I mean, think about this, even the years that Rodgers won, Peyton won, Brady won. There's not a guarantee that you're going to make a deep run in the playoffs in the Super Bowl. It's still a regular season award. And I'm wondering though, if you start to look around and you watch what Saquon's doing in the playoffs and it sways you a little bit. Allen's still there in the AFC Championship. Is it going to sway the voting public? Burrow's numbers were off the chart. Jackson's numbers were equally off the chart. I mean, look, comeback player of the year, you can say Sam Darnold, DeMar Hamlin, whatever, but MVP is a little different. Like we forget the running backs do not get the flowers when it comes to the NFL MVP. I gave the list of Adrian Peterson and LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Alexander. Other than that, it's just, quarterback. Can you see where they look at Saquon and say, I think it was more, you're a great player, but it's also the product of the Eagles, the talent and the offensive line, and that hurts Saquon.
Well, I think with Saquon, as you said, it's a quarterback award, and they just have a leg up on everybody. So he'll be the offensive player of the year, and everybody will talk about the magical season he had. But it's just so hard for a running back or wide receiver to get that MVP award, and they just put so much on panache on a quarterback position. And Saquon, and he's humble enough, he'll tell you, he's like, the offensive line should get their flowers if he wins any award. So, I wouldn't detract that from him. And I think it's a good thing, offensive player of the year. And then the Eagles are focused on trying to get to Super Bowl.
Travis Hunter's odds have just gone through the roof. His odds to be number one selection in the draft, they moved again yesterday. And you already heard the Titans come out and say, we will not pass up a generational talent with the first pick. So Wednesday, 15-1 first pick at Sportsbooks. His odds move to plus 150. So, do that as you may, which we will talk more about on BYP. Right now, Cam Ward minus 105, Shador Sanders at plus 350. I bring it up because, if he goes, you got two quarterbacks that many believe will follow suit. Do you believe Travis Hunter will be the number one overall draft pick come April?
I think at the end, after they go to the combine and all the other all season stuff, that the Titans will come to the fact, their position needs quarterback. They need somebody to build around. Their quarterback position's been terrible for quite some time since Steve McNair left, and they'll end up taking a quarterback. But yeah, Travis Hunter, I do believe, is one of those special players, and it's going to be fun to see him come in the NFL. I was debating this with my son who's in college. I still think they make him a cornerback only. You know what I mean? I just don't see him playing both sides. It's just so difficult in the NFL. And I still remember Dion and Champ Bailey, those guys being beat up a little bit when they were trying to play both sides of football.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It's you're talking Ironman football. It's a different avenue. I'm just I keep saying it. I'm just not enamored with any of these quarterbacks coming out.
Yeah, and but Q, the Rockets always put these quarterbacks back when the pre-draft process, and then next thing Zach Wilson, everybody's talking about his workout and all the different quarterbacks through the years, and next thing that one of them's jumping up to be in one or two pick. So I still think that they're going to go with a quarterback because they need one really bad. I know they got rid of their general manager recently, and the new GM he'll probably lean towards having that building block quarterback coming in there at Tennessee.
Cam chimes in from Delaware as well. Used to listen to us on 1290 The Ticket. My goodness, which is now unfortunately 1290 The Cricket, but that's besides the point. Q, you guys mentioned the familiarity of Jaden Daniels and playing in the NFC East. Do you think that gives Vic Fangio a leg up? I mean, do you think defensively the Eagles will put together the right scheme to slow him down?
Definitely, and they're looking at the tape from week 11, week 16, saw what they did well against them, what they need to fix up, and it's going to be a chess match out there. And you're talking about two defensive, you have Fangio on the Eagles side, and then Dan Quinn on the Washington side, and they're going to lock horns. But I definitely think Fangio will have some, zone blitzes, etc., lined up to keep Jaden Daniels in check. But the key thing, obviously, is if you can't let him break the pocket and then get out and make plays with his legs. And also the Eagles got to watch, their old friend Zach Ertz. Don't forget about him. He is his security blanket.
That's a good point. Glenn, Reading, PA. Q, always enjoying you on the air. Big time Eagles fan. You got a stat on this one. Eagles are 4-0 in the playoffs when Hurts throws for less than 250. 0-3 when he throws for 250 plus. Yeah, it's because, like I said, you don't need the gaudy numbers. That I feel as though even if he plays poorly and they win, now we're going to sit there. Oh, can he take him over the hump and win the Super Bowl? Like, get there first. Then we can dissect and analyze. If he plays poorly and they lose the game and he has some ill-advised picks or he's hanging on to the football, then you guys want to turn around on Monday and say, we can't win with this guy. He's not a franchise quarterback. Have at it. Have at it. But get through Sunday first.
Yeah, and Hurts is a lot like, Steve McNair. He reminds me of him. It may not be pretty, but it's all about getting the wins. You got a guy that's going to move the chains when needed. He's going to hit the key throw. Think last week there was a throw on third down. He had to have it. He hits A.J. Brown on a slant. A.J. Brown only had 2 catches in the game, but he hit him when he needed to. And, it's all about winning a game. I know these fans, as we were talking about earlier, fantasy football and these player props, whatever it is, they want to see the big numbers. But you know what? In the end, it's about winning the game. And this is the ultimate trip, to the Super Bowl, and they got to find a way to get it done, whether it's Saquon or whomever stepping up on that offense.
Jarrett chimes in North Jersey. Q, you talk about this MVP race. We know it's a regular season award, but do you think the play of Allen of recently, just like you mentioned with Saquon, is going to sway the voters? And does that make the voting process skewed? I don't think so. I mean, look, I think we already know. We have the finalists, but let's be honest, they already know who's won the award.
Yeah, I think the writers of the deadline probably was right around January 1st to get their vote in. So they probably already made their minds up, and it's going to be interesting to see how the numbers shake out. We look at that every year when Heisman comes out. What who voted for whom and by what percentage, and it's going to be fun to see this. But as you said, Burrow with the big numbers he had, and then Lamar, he had a great season, and Josh Allen. So and Saquon, they're all deserving of it. But I just think that the voters are going to think it's Allen's time to win the award.
I tend to agree with you. And I don't want to hear this. It's like when Karl Malone won and you can't keep giving it to Michael Jordan the year Barkley won. Allen, what did you call what kind of play? The splash plays, like when he had to carry them, he carried them. And I feel as though Ravens fans forget one thing. You can throw Derrick Henry into the conversation. Like Josh Allen doesn't have the offensive line. He doesn't have a Derrick Henry to open things up. He just doesn't.
Right, and every successful quarterback is going to have pieces around him. I mean, Joe Montana was considered the greatest quarterback ever, and look at all the pieces he had to send around. Particularly, had one of the great offensive minds in Bill Walsh as well. So, you can always pick apart any selection for MVP, but the quarterback the quarterback that wins it, they truly usually deserve it.
Now we thought we were going to see a blowout national championship game. It had the makings, right? And thank God that, oh, by the way, field goal kind of helped your guy Q out. We were able to cash on that with the 8.5, 9, depending upon where you hung your hat. I was absolutely shocked. Why Freeman decides I'm going to go for a field goal down 2 score. It made absolutely no sense. I'm sure you were watching it with the family. Were you kind of sitting back saying, what is he doing here?
Yeah, I think he was just trying to get some points, and they got down so early. He was just trying
21 to
to.
7. Yeah.
Yeah, but you think after that point, when you get that close, what they need more, and Leonard needed to put the ball in the end zone there rather than the field goal. So yeah, Freeman, it was a little head scratcher, but a good overachieving season for the Notre Dame after they lost in Northern Illinois so early in the season. You thought their season's over, but Ohio State just had the better players, and they just dominated certain points in this game.
Now, what Lloyd typically does is he does his lackey and his game balls. I never look. We always talk about it on a Friday, but the listening audience wanted us to kind of dive into that for a moment or two. All right. I would say your game ball, we're talking divisional round. I mean, it has to be Saquon, does it not?
Ding, ding, ding. I mean, Q is just incredible. 26 attempts, 205 yards. Eagles record, by the way, and the 5th most all time in the NFL. 2 TDs, and those TD runs, I mean, 62 and 78. He's just running clean. And that right side of the line, as I was talking about earlier, is just dominant, and he's just using his blocking effectively.
All right, Lackey. I hate where we're going with this, but logic would say you gave it to Mark Andrews.
My son was like, you got to give it to him, but I didn't go with that. Jared Goff, I had to give it to him, Q. You talk about an MVP candidate. He came up really small in this game, and they lost at home as a huge favorite, 9.5-point favorite. He had 3 interceptions in this game, including a pick 6, sacked twice, and they lose the Commanders 45-31, and he just was not helping his team with his effort. So I gave him my lackey.
So I want to, if you have a moment with the Andrews stuff, he had to come out with a statement today, and he dropped the ball. I mean, I know Ravens fans don't want to hear that, right? He dropped the ball. I mean, I remember when the Giants blew a horrible lead against the 49ers, and the point of contention was they had to go sign Trey Junkin, the long snapper. And I remember I interviewed Amani Toomer, and he told me, Rich, if I saw I probably want to crack the guy years later. Like, okay, I'm not comparing the two, but from a fan standpoint, you know what I remember the most about that game was Shockey missing one in the end zone and Tiki blowing kisses. thinking the game was over. Yeah, the play at the end should have been called, with the legal man downfield, man downfield, and the Giants should have got the ball. The NFL screwed it up, they said, but they blew that game. Point being is the Ravens had multiple opportunities to not only stay within that game, but win that game. They had to pick, they had to fumble. It just so happened that Andrews fumbled again, had to miss 2-point conversion. I know people were saying that Lamar maybe, could have made a better throw, bad conditions. This guy doesn't need to make that's great that you're manning up, but ultimately you drop the ball. It's not the end of the world, man. Like, this guy's been a good, solid player, a classy guy, a pro's pro for the Ravens for a long time. And, you just hate to see some of these players have to come out because they're just getting crucified on social media.
Yeah, and at a certain point, football, it's a collective team thing, and you can point to any game. There's so many key plays that wrap up, and yes, that 2-point conversion drop was huge, and let's not forget the fumble to Bernard that was humongous earlier in the game. So he had a very bad game. You feel bad for the guy, but I don't think he should come out with a statement. And I remember talking to Dwayne Clemens, who was on that '98 Vikings team. Gary Anderson missed the kick to help the Falcons win the game. But, Dwayne was talking about there was a couple other plays. He said, why did Robert Smith run out of bounds? And
That's right.
instead of keeping the clock rolling. And there was a couple other plays, that came up in that game. And there's always going to be moments, but, you feel bad for Andrews, but collectively as a team, they didn't get it done. And, can't, the other side did, the Bills did. And 3 turnovers were huge in that game. Just not forget that, the team had 3 turnovers.
Correct. And there are 4 or 5 of those drop passes, 4 or 5 of those plays collectively in a game where you can go back and watch the film. Blown special teams, missed field goal, block punt, drop pass, can't convert on 3rd down, gave up a 3rd down. It's just not on Andrews. It just, the Ravens got beat by a better team that day. That's clearly what it comes down to.
Yeah, it just was not their day. And
No.
you can always say, oh, the best team didn't win, but, the final score is all that matters. And
That's it.
Yep, that's it, man.
That's all that matters, right? Everything else is smoke and mirrors. All right, Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us. He'll be with me Friday and over the weekend on Back Your Play. Catch him every Monday on SR 1029 FM. The Game. Lloyd Vance is Insider Football. Appreciate the extended time with me, my friend. I know you have to go out and get some stuff done on this fine Thursday. Stay. I wonder, you get hammered with snow? You shoveling out there?
We shoveled earlier, but it's cold, man. It's so cold out in the Northeast. You just want to stay inside.
It's obnoxiously cold, as I like to say. So, all right, brother. I appreciate you. We'll talk tomorrow.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
All right. There you have a quick time out. We'll close it out.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Call or text the show
at 727-858-6650.
Now, back to Q.
All right, good stuff there from Lloyd Vance. Extended on a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. Middays with Q. What the hell am I talking about? The Drive with Q. Oh, my God, Angel. Did you hear that one? Whew. Just going back and forth to two different shows. Oh, good job. How many years you been on radio now? What do you got? The other, what was it? In Delaware, it was In the Zone with Q. Then there was Middays with Q. Then there was In the Trenches. That was back in the day. There was the Sports Chronicles. I'm going to do this tomorrow with Angel because I know he's going to get a kick out of it. We had the middays from 12 to 2 on SR 1029. Then we rebranded and we decided, you know what? We need a little juice during drive time. We need a little pep. So there we have it, Monday to Friday from 4 to 6, the Drive with Q. Angel did some new logos, and we're not going to tease what we got going on with the merch. But every time he sent me the logo, like the ball breaker that I would sit there and say, hey, can you do it in this color? Can you do it in that color? Can you switch here? Can you move this? Can you do that? And he did a really, really nice job. A really nice job. Oh, chimes in Q. You forgot what station you were on. No, I did not. I know exactly where I am. All right. A couple minutes before we get out of here. I saw a comment from, I think it was from Vince before. And it's funny because we were talking to Reese Wood yesterday in Miami. Here you go. Vince chimes in. Can we talk about Pat Riley ruining his legacy and having a pissing contest with Jimmy Butler? Why the hell won't he just trade him? It seems very petty and stupid. We were talking about Jimmy Butler yesterday. And hey, all's good. Here we go. There's no reason to suspend him. Well, he missed a flight. Didn't get on the plane. And I was looking at the number salary wise, but I was also figuring out, okay, to Vince's point, why in the world they won't trade him? Like, what? Jimmy Butler's basically forcing Miami to trade him. And again, if you take a step back, is it possible that nobody wants to touch Jimmy Butler? At this point, it sounds like the Heat really don't care what he wants, if that makes sense. Like, Jimmy Butler has his landing spots. I think he wants to go to the Grizzlies, but they're not going to offer him a long-term contract. He's 35. He's going to hit unrestricted free agency this summer. That's especially if he declines. I think it's a $53 million player option. So I think the value's deflated. And maybe Miami's thinking we're just going to grab the best offer possible. And that's where they're one. I mean, stick him in Phoenix. Stick him in Golden State. Right? I mean, I listen, is the best fit for Jimmy Butler with Durant? Maybe Golden State. Maybe they have one last little run, right, to try to get in the playoffs and in a stacked Western Conference. Who the hell knows? I mean, Golden State right now, they're teetering around 500. They're on the outside looking in. I mean, again, if you look about the top seeds, Oklahoma City, Houston, which has just been lights out over the last 10, Memphis, Denver, the Lakers, the Clippers, Sacramento, Minnesota, Dallas, Phoenix, and then you got Golden State, kind of the bottom pack, right? The worst team in the Western Conference right now, New Orleans and Utah. And then Washington's really bad, and Toronto and Charlotte in the Eastern Conference. So are you going to keep him in the Eastern Conference? Are you going to move him to the Western Conference? Are you going to appease him? I don't think they want to appease him. That's my point. I think at this juncture, they don't care. They don't care what Jimmy Butler has to say. They don't. Whether it's fair, foul, or out of bounds, it just doesn't matter. They're over it. They don't want to deal with it. And we just talked about it yesterday. We just talked about Jimmy Butler. All right, they resolved their issues. Everyone's happy, kumbaya, and then he misses a flight. Oh, man. You cannot. I mean, He's suspended again, 2 games for missing a flight. That basically tells you he doesn't care. He just does not care. You're not missing a flight. They canceled practice. They flew out early to Wisconsin on Wednesday. And maybe something that had something to do with it. But he decided he's going to fly on his own and meet the team and play on Thursday. Clearly, they were not happy with that distraction, right? Of him missing. Now, they're probably happy that he's not in the locker room away from the team. They're probably happy with that. But the distraction, the perception is not good. He's played in 3 games since he returned from that first suspension. 7 games for conduct detrimental to the team. I mean, it's pretty clear momentum's built towards Jimmy Butler getting traded. And maybe he's got this landing spot, whether it's Golden State, whether it's Phoenix. I don't know. I mean, Phoenix needs to send out Bradley Beal. And Beal has no trade clause. So he can veto any deal. And Miami's not going to take on $110 million over the next 2 years. They're not going to do that. So you're going to get a third team, maybe a fourth, maybe a fifth. I don't know. Someone's got to bring on and take on that contract. It's not happening. But at this point, I don't think Miami really gives a shit what Jimmy Butler has to say or thinks or does. They don't. They just don't want the distraction. They don't want to have to deal with it. They don't want the players to have to go through the media and the reporters asking the same questions night in and night out. They don't want that. No team wants to deal with that kind of stuff. That's why when you hear a player's been suspended for conduct detrimental, that's typically what we see here. But, hey, I'll jump on another plane or I'll miss the plane. That's never a good look. Never, ever a good luck. We'll do more on the NBA tomorrow. We'll go football heavy. By the way, you had one game today, the Paris game, where San Antonio covered the nut and then some. They put up 140 against Indiana. 140 against the Pacers. Wow. Man, there's no defense in the NBA. I mean, teams are just scoring $120, $125. If you guys are doing anything with props, play the overs, the team totals, pardon me, the game totals. There is one play that I do like tonight. Boston on the road. They're laying 6.5 against the Lakers. That's a 10 o'clock game. So you'll be able to, I think that's a TNT game, and it should be. So you'll be able to catch that game. All right, got to start wrapping it up. Very good stuff from Lloyd Vance. Tomorrow on a Football Friday, we will dive into conference championships. We'll give you some of the keys to the game. I will give you 3 or 4 player props. We'll give you the predictions, our thoughts. We'll preview everything. We'll also keep you updated on the head coaching carousel, the rumor mill in the NFL. Working on a couple guests, so we'll tweet them out. We'll throw them on X and on Facebook. Do not forget, follow us on Facebook at Coastal Sports Network, also on X at CSN Florida. You can follow myself at Rich Q on Q. Also follow Angel. Follow all the hosts. Pretty easy. Angel's at SR1029 The Game. And if you just follow Coastal Sports Network, you'll see kind of the lineup. You'll see how easy it is to follow all the hosts who are putting on some really good content on the network. And we certainly appreciate all the support. We just, again, the numbers early in January have just gone through the roof as far as the views, the content, you guys downloading the app. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. That the fact that you stay with us, 2, 3, 4 hours, 5 hours at a time is unbelievable. But you can follow Angel, myself, Pete at PS Shep 326, Lloyd Vance at Lloyd Vance, our guy Jay at JFLANNEZ 19, Jonathan Marshall at John Marshall, John_Marshall 3. He's got 2 new drops coming of Marshall time. We've got the starting lineup. We are working on the merch store. We are working on being out and about very soon. So we've got some really good things cooking with SR 1029 FM The Game, and of course, Coastal Sports Network. All right, as we wrap it up, tomorrow, Pete Shepard, he'll wake you up 7 to 10 with the Pete Shepard Show. Me, hermano, Angel Martinez back in the saddle with Martinez and company from 10 to 12. And, it's a What the Freak Football Friday edition of The Drive with Q from 4 to 6. Maybe we bleed over 6:15-ish 6:30 on a Friday, because we always like to have a little fun with you guys. We get a little loose after 6 on Friday. But appreciate everyone keeping us tuned in. Appreciate everyone keeping us locked in. Have a good Sports Thursday. If you are in a cold environment, dress warm. Stay warm, have a little fresh roasted coffee, a little hot toddy to get you through the evening. And we will see you tomorrow from 4 to 6 with The Drive with Q. Angel Martinez will be back in the saddle with me. I missed my hermano today, but I'm thankful that he was back with us this week, and he will be back with me tomorrow from 4 to 6. He'll get you going 10 to 12. And as I mentioned, Pete wakes you up 7 to 10 with the Pete Shepherd Show. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Have a wonderful Sports Thursday. Be safe, be sound. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 4 with The Drive with Q. As always, hasta luego, buen día.